If you ever notice, and this is a cliche too, right? But we're always attracted to our opposite. It's almost always true. And that's because that person is going to do that. They're going to set up that sets up those parameters, right? For difficulty, but you love them, but they drive you crazy, but you love, and that whole dynamic is what helps you discover your edge, right? Your limits, and then helps push beyond those things for both of you.
I remember in my wife, I saw things I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Right? And I saw things that I had to offer that I knew she wanted to be.
Oh, it's the same thing for me. I don't think it was as conscious. I think I mentioned this last time too. Things happen quickly in our relationship, so I'm not sure. It was definitely more intuitive. It was very intuitive, our relationship and how we fell in. But it didn't take very long at all before it was very obvious how different we were. You know what I mean? Now, in the beginning, you just kind of glaze over it.
Yeah.
Right? It's fine. I love her. She's the greatest thing in the world, that doesn't matter. This isn't going to matter. We're going to get through these things. And we did, but wow, they mattered. These differences mattered, and they sucked sometimes. I mean, they really were hard. They're not over. I mean, we're different.
Opposites attract, and that's good for you. That's good for you.
Exactly.
But it's not fun.
It's not an accident.
But it's not fun.
Yeah. No, it's not fun.
But it's good for you because then because a relationship, they talk about two people come together to become one. Mm-hmm. But if you were both the same, then you really just copy each other.
What's accomplished? Exactly.
Yeah, there's nothing accomplished. But good that you see it differently, and good that you have different impulses, because now you have two specialists instead of two generalists. And therefore, you create a bigger whole. And I think that's why opposites attract.
So here's to help you understand how you should be going about maybe shifting your posture, or what to be focusing on, or how to find some guidance, is that whatever it is that is your opposite, meaning, in other words, a really simple way to bring it home is, I'm very extroverted. My wife's very introverted, as these common terminologies, right? So for me, my job turned out to be quiet down, right? Yes. Do more listening, right? For my wife, but that's not her advice. That's not what she needs to do. Funny enough, she needs to do the exact opposite, right? She needs to step up, to speak up, to find her power in that way, right? Like and that's what I bring to her. Like, I'm exemplifying that all the time, too much sometimes, right? But in order to let her find her footing in that way, I have to quiet down. I have to do the opposite of the thing that seems natural to me. I think it's very common what we need to do. And there's lots of, this is just one example, but there's many, many different ways that will unfold. And it's a good way to, like, if you're seeing that, that opposite thing going on, if you're seeing what your partner is and it drives you crazy, you probably need to kind of take that on a little bit yourself. Does that make any sense, David?
No, deeply.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say something that sounds like I'm contradicting you, but I'm not.
Go for it.
Okay, so a relationship has a certain amount of polarity to it naturally, right? Opposites attract. You got your polarity, and you're attracted to each other because each one contains something you need.
That's it.
But
right?
If both of you become each other, or go past each other,
right,
and become the other too much, the relationship loses that polarity that's so important. And I think sometimes you taking on the other person's point of view, it doesn't mean that you sacrifice your own necessarily.
No,
it just means that you integrate theirs. But a lot of people sacrifice that polarity. So there's a quote, and I wrote this one down too because it stood out to me as being very true, but kind of ugly, a little hard, but kind of true. And the quote is, "A husband is what is left of a lover after the nerve has been extracted."
Wow.
So meaning that oftentimes a husband will become emasculated if they're in a relationship a lot, right? If they're in a relationship for a long time, they go from being a really assertive, daring, risk-taking, man that the woman fell in love with to begin with, and then he gets rolled over on. He kind of gets defeated by the marriage because he thinks that vulnerability means weakness. He thinks that he thinks that working with his partner means compromising himself.
No, I get it.
And it works the other way too, right? And a lot of times in trying to make things work or peaceful, you give up what does your side of the polarity, and you have a responsibility to hold up your side of that polarity.
That is true. It's an incredibly awesome nuance that you just laid out, and I'm really glad that you did it. I don't feel like it contradicts what I was trying to say. It's just an important detail. It's an important detail, right? It's like a guideline here, like, okay, do this, but not too much, right? Like stay, like if you're finding you're going over here too much, bring it back. I agree.
You're going to bring your strengths and weaknesses in the relationship, and your partner's going to bring their strengths and weaknesses into the relationship. And then a lot of times the things that you're good at because you pay a lot of attention to, and maybe you want some of those things. This goes down to the love languages. Maybe you're really good at saying I love you, but your partner's not. And so you keep saying I love you because you want to be told I love you a lot. And then you get mad at your partner for not being you.
Yeah.
Right? So the real answer is that your partner remains them, but integrates the skill of saying I love you. But your job is to not become angry at your partner for not also being you.
Right, of course,
right?
Of course.
That maybe saying I love you, while it would, this is a hard thing to explain, but while it would be nice if they got better at it, that's your job in the relationship. That's your strength. Like you're the leader of that responsibility.
Own it.
Own it and own your leadership role in that. So just because you're good at it doesn't mean, well, I'm already good at this. Now it's time for my partner to catch up. It's like, no, lead them forward.
Right.
And take responsibility of your role. Yeah.
Exactly. Just to bring it home as far as really personal, I think you and I can't imagine we haven't talked about, I lived almost exactly that in my marriage. Meaning, for the most part, I was the more romantic one. It just kind of comes with a personality too, right? I'm Italian, whatever you want to say, the reasons for it behind it are, I was more that way. And I did spend some time in my head, in my personal conversation, right? Having the wrong conversation, thinking, why doesn't my wife do this too? Why doesn't she bring, why doesn't she share in this? Why doesn't she return that? And it brought a lot of misery. That was totally the wrong conversation. Until one day, I finally realized, and I saw it so clearly too, because I saw, hey, gee, you were like that with your first love, you were like that with your second love, and now you're like that with your wife. This is the way you are. This is what you want to do. Stop putting it on her.
Thing.
This is a me thing. And once I stopped expecting her and wanting her to do it, I could just enjoy the fact that I want to do it.
Yes.
It freed that a bit. And funny enough, too, strangely enough, certain things started to, this gets into my thing about the law of dissidence, where when you're pushing, you don't get that. But when I let up on that, too, didn't expect it from her anymore and didn't even want it in a way, didn't need it, because I realized, no, that's what I want to give to the relationship. That's my job, as you put it, right?
That's your job.
She started behaving that way a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It was beautiful, just kind of organically, which was much better than me trying to force it.
Yeah, I would want to engage my wife in my style of communication and my style of romance, and I would just be hungry for it. And I'm like, why isn't she doing what I do? And then that's why I brought it up.
Yeah,
that's what you bring. Right. So take ownership of that and become a leader. Right. It's not her job. You didn't marry her for that.
Right.
Let her do her job, and you do your job. And just because you want something that's not automatically just sitting there in front of you, doesn't mean that's a lack in her. Maybe it's a you thing, right? Maybe this is a me thing, or it's both.
Well, that's the thing, right? That's where it comes back to what I was trying to express and what you added to it, right? It's the middle path thing again. It's somewhere in between. That's where we long to be, right? Like centered,